Hi, I'm Greg Borden, your Ghent Town historian. Today's trip into Ghent history, we are in, where else? Buckleyville. We're talking about another of our 5 new Pomeroy Foundation historical markers. And before we go any further, let's just drop in a beautiful bird's eye view, an old picture of Buckleyville. God, that's a beauty right there. So for the geographically challenged, where exactly are we? We're between Ghent and Chatham. We are between the hamlet of Ghent and the village of Chatham. The current location of Camp Hill, Ghent, Agway, Chatham Auto Parts, Say Bella Salon, Price Chopper, Valiant Auto, Bank of Greene County, you get the point. Okay, Buckleyville. Why is it here, and what was here? And why did it exist really from 1890 till about, well, 1940, 1950? Well, first off, Buckleyville was, and some say still is, a hamlet. Now, a hamlet is a collection of businesses and homes, a place that needed a name so people could say, I live in Buckleyville, or where are you going today, dear? I'm going to Buckleyville. But Buckleyville never had any type of legal status in any way. There is no incorporated town or village of government. There was no postal address, no school district, no fire district, none of the things that provide any sort of legal boundary. But that is, after all, what a hamlet is. Fred Engle, the self-proclaimed governor of Buckleyville, rightly questioned the adjective former on our marker. Now, my original submission of text for this marker did not have former, but the Pomeroy Foundation suggested former. At the very least, it raises a good point. To be a hamlet or not a hamlet, that is a good question. When is a place no longer a place? Does there have to be a certain percentage of people who know the name? Does it require a sign? I don't know, but these are excellent questions, and I thank Governor Engle for raising them in my mind, and now all of yours as well. Now, without question, Buckleyville's heyday was roughly 1890 to 1940, and the man behind its growth was Thomas S. Buckley, who in an 1898 news article was described as Chatham's wide-awake, hustling lumber contractor, even though Buckleyville is wholly in the town of Ghent. Now, Buckley was certainly a man of his time who took advantage of the age of steam at its height during this time period. Steam, well, steam engines, of course, we know steam-powered trains, but they could also power mills. So up until Buckleyville, PB, pre-Buckleyville, Ghent's mills had to be located along streams or creeks to take advantage of, albeit free, however inconsistent, hydropower to grind grain, to make cider, and to cut wood. But Mr. Buckley, a man of his age, used steam engines to drive his mills, which means he could have put them anywhere. Why here? Well, both of Ghent's train lines ran through here, the Boston and Albany and the Harlem, later New York, called New York Central. So Mr. Buckley taking full advantage of the age of steam. Besides having the hamlet named for him, or somehow I suspect he may have named it, I'm not sure. Here's just a quick overview of some of the newspaper articles that covered Buckleyville during its heyday. So Mr. Buckley was, I think, pretty good at self-promotion, or maybe his buddy ran the newspaper, I'm not sure. But 1898 is the article that declared him the hustling lumber contractor. And the article talks about him purchasing 170 acres of wood in Boston Corners, the extreme southeast corner of Columbia County, and employing 41 men and 15 horses to transfer the lumber from the woods to Mr. Buckley's sawmill. Mr. Buckley's payroll, 1898, was around $500 a week. So Mr. Buckley was a major employer in the town of Ghent. Now, where did that wood go? Well, maybe to some homes, maybe locally, but he was a great exporter. he doing business, and he would leave Ghent to do business with the Standard Oil Company and the railroad companies. Much of the wood he produced here was made into bumpers for barges and tugboats. I think that those were both maybe on the boat and also on the dock, so when the boat pulls up and hits the dock. And this one order was for 39,000 railroad ties to be delivered to the New York Central Rail Company. That's one order, 39,000 railroad ties that Mr. Buckley produced here in Buckleyville. Besides lumber, Mr. Buckley was a bit of a cider magnate, and this is from actually an ad that he put in the paper. I am putting in a new hydraulic cider press, which will be ready August 25th. I give 4 gallons of cider for 1 bushel of apples and charge 2 cents per gallon for grinding. I can grind 50 bushels of apples in a half hour or so. Get your cider from the apples you bring. Bring cider barrels with your apples. We'll grind every Tuesday and Friday. And of course he throws in at the bottom, also prepared to turn out novelty siding, match flooring, and do all kinds of planing work on short notice. That's an ad Mr. Buckley placed. Now, it wasn't just the 2 train lines. He had a very large siding put in. So an entire train cars could be backed onto the siding, leaving the main rails free for through traffic. And according to the newspaper, the siding went from here, where the Borden's plants were, I'm across from Camp Hill, Ghent, all the way up to the Blinn Crossing, so about to the southern tip of the fairgrounds. So it was almost like another little rail yard in between Ghent's small rail yard and Chatham's very large rail yard. This article does mention cider again, and it was one season he shipped about 30 rail cars full of cider. This little tidbit just was dropped in the newspaper in 1911. I'll read the full extent of it. Headline: A coming city. Buckleyville between Ghent and Chatham is spreading out towards both places and forming a nucleus of a new city in Columbia County, 1911. So you can see if the boom of agriculture and railroads in Ghent had continued another 20 years, there would have been no distinction really between the hamlet of Ghent through Buckleyville up to the village of Chatham. It would have all been one contiguous settlement. In some ways it already was, but it really would have been almost indistinguishable to a passer through. And again, with the cider, in 1922, Mr. Buckley is manufacturing about 30 casks of cider each day, making daily shipments of about 40,000 pounds of apples. Now, we don't engage in much great man theory of history here at Ghent History. We do people's history. But I wanted to highlight Buckleyville and Thomas Buckley because it's something that rattles around a lot of people's heads. And Buckleyville and Thomas Buckley they were essential to the people in the surrounding area. So even though this is sort of great man theory of history, I just want to point out the importance to everyone. Apple growers brought their apples here to be exported around the northeast, right? Lumberjacks were employed. Farmers could clear a wood lot in the winter time to make a little extra money when they weren't busy making hay. Thomas Buckley's adulthood. Thomas Buckley lived from 1855, when only one rail line went through here. He lived from 1855 to 1929. His adulthood spans the golden age of rail and agriculture, the 2 key elements of Ghent history. And here in Buckleyville, he was certainly at the center of Ghent's agricultural life, and of course, a big part using the railroad that came through here. Buckleyville was more than Thomas Buckley. Actually, where I'm standing right now was the site of the Borden's plants. Now, across the road from here, where Camp Hill, Ghent is, was the largest Borden's plant in Columbia County. And there was a time when maybe 100 to 200 small farms the farmers would have brought their milk here, sell it to be processed, and then shipped out by rail. Very large plant. Let me drop a picture in here of that. And across the road was a Borden certified milk plant. Now that is a very special thing to have. Nobody brought their milk there. The Borden certified plant had 200 of their own cows, their own discrete staff of farmers and producers. The plants did not combine workers. They didn't combine anything as far as I know. Maybe some workers for outdoors. But you had to be super hygienic because it was very high butterfat content milk. And it was so clean, the process of making it here with their own herd, that it did not have to be pasteurized. And it was shipped around the Northeast, and actually doctors would prescribe it to patients who needed extra nutrients and extra fat to build themselves up. So Ghent had 2 Borden's plants, a regular one, the biggest in the county, and a certified milk plant over on the east side of Union Turnpike now, Route 66. And the foundations of those plants are still here, and you can see over my right shoulder one of the barns that went with the certified plant on this side of Route 66 is still here as well. So the next time you pass through Buckleyville, think about Buckleyville. Imagine the hustle and bustle of lumber mills, cider mills, coal dealers. Of course, stores were here as well to sell things to farmers when they came in. And like the hay presses back in the hamlet that we've talked about before, Buckleyville connected Ghent to the world, sending lumber, milk, cider, and other things out and bringing coal in for people to burn in their homes. Many thanks to the Maldonados for letting us place the marker here, and to Governor Fred Engel for helping the process along the way. And of course, many thanks to the Pomeroy Foundation for funding the marker, for paying historians to check my work. And that's why we always say, if it says William G. Pomeroy Foundation, you know it's right.